Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, welcome, everybody. I don't know what that hiccup was, but when I come back in to watch my live again, right, we'll spot what that was all about. But in the meantime, hi, if you've never popped into one of my lives before, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And in honest truth, in coming into my life today, I thought we were on the word thoughtfulness. I truly did. And I have to be an honest in saying that, right? Because, I had some good stories. My day was filled with little thoughtfulnesses. In all actuality, some of those thoughtfulnesses were little thoughtfulnesses, but they impacted like big thoughtfulnesses, right? The effort in it, the kindnesses. My brother in law today, look what he got me. Oh my goodness. This is my sister Alice's boyfriend. And he knows I love crystals. And look at these. Look at these absolutely beautiful little amethyst and a point here. I think I might give that one to Lorraine. I might give that one to Lorraine. We'll see. In thoughtfulness, right? To do a kind thing. Me and Lorraine both like the amethyst. And I thought that was very sweet of my brother-in-law to do that to me. But also at the same time, my sister drove me to work because I accidentally took the store phone home with me. The store phone, put it in my pocket and took it home with me. So that had to be returned this morning. And then we went and exchanged my winter boots to a larger size because the size I had originally gotten was one size too small. And they're very expensive boots, and they're my dream boots, a new pair of Keens, right? So we went and we got those exchanged. And my sister wasn't feeling well today, right? And it was very kind of her, and it was very thoughtful of her, because not so much, it was that she took me to get the boots, but how she felt when she took me to get the boots, how much of an effort it was to get it done. And I hope, a little bit of fresh air, right? A little bit of conversation, a little bit of connection, that it might have done her a little bit of good. Okay, we're going to drag it right back to the main branch, right? Because we're not talking about thoughtfulness this week. That was last week's word. The 22nd word for 22 weeks. We have been picking a word, and we're going to put a deck together of just powerful words. And each week we're taking a word, and the first day it's just a perspective. In all this truth, I can't even remember coming into my live and watching it again. And I know I did. But it's just slipping by me. But that's the patterning, right? That's how much we miss. And hopefully if I go in and watch it again, which means 2 live shows tonight, maybe I'll go in and I'll say, "Oh, that's what it was all about. I remember now." Right? But if I didn't, then I'll be sitting in yesterday's live, and I don't even know how long it was either. But it doesn't matter, right? That's who I am, and it's part of my growth. It's part of my movement forward. It's part of my self programming. Some of these things that I do for myself because I know they help me. Right? Again, sometimes it is in that patterning. It's like a bad memory sometimes. And sometimes you need to be whipped upside the head 100 times before it finally sinks in. And that's the honest truth. But I do remember to bring myself back to the main branch. And we are talking about integrity. So as soon as I realize, oops, we're not on thoughtfulness, we're on integrity. First thing I did is, okay, let's see what Google has to say about integrity. Okay, so I Googled the word integrity. And it right off the hop, it gives me a few examples of integrity. But when you go in, it's very specific, in the workplace, right? In church and religious denominations, the way we play it out. And I want something universal because yesterday we were saying, life is what happens to you while you're making other plans. But another mission statement that this brand moves by is that it takes all kinds to make the world. It takes all kinds to make the world. And I'd like an answer, and I would like some movement that would include, right? Make that idea like nobody's left out. If anybody wants to join in on the conversation or has something to contribute to the conversation, no matter what religion you are, what denomination you are, what nationality you are, right? Your political ideas, and we're going to go into integrity and talk a little bit about values because sometimes there's an appropriateness to when we can talk about certain things, right? It's a matter of respecting the people that are in the hall and the people that are in the room, right? In not stirring that pot. Part of my brand. We don't stir the pot intentionally. And I say that slowly and with thoughtfulness, right? Because I understand that we, in our movement forward and in those choices we make and in that goal setting, right? We stir the pot, but it's not with an intent to stir the pot. It's only with the intent to bring about change, right? And sometimes we make those choices. We make those choices and the change happens, right? And we feel it all stirred up. You go, oh my goodness, right? This is too loud. This is too scary. This is too frantic. This is too stupid, right? And we talk ourselves out of any kind of opportunity to do better by ourselves. Okay, so bring it back to integrity. So let's look at the definition of integrity. Oh, wrong mouse here. I got my laptop and I got my PC here. So integrity is the cornerstone of good character, right? And encompasses all 12 of our character traits. It is the quality of being honest, trustworthy, fair, responsible, caring, and having the moral courage to do the right thing. For me, that fits in very nicely in that idea that it takes all kinds to make the world, because this is how we're going to resolve war. This is how we're going to resolve those disagreements. We move in majority rules. I move in majority rules, right? But it's my hopes and it's my expectation in that majority will be these qualities of honesty, trustworthy, fairness, responsibility, caring, and having the moral courage to do the right thing, right? But you can look around in the world and you can see, well, it's not quite the case, right? And that's the truth. But we are working towards that, aren't we? That, right? I could see that in the conversations online, right? I could feel it, or I could see it in my feed, right? I can feel it in the conversations that I'm having with people, right? So I think, in learning to be able to get along better with others, that, because it's my mission statement, it takes all kinds to make the world. And, we've come to realize that is actually right. At first, it starts with a little bit of tolerance, not quite the acceptance, but the tolerance. And as it's more natural and more regularly around us, we become comfortable in that. Then we actually rub shoulders with that. We have conversations with that. We feel that. And we go, oh my goodness, right? It's like sitting with mom at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. This person, right? That 10 years ago I wouldn't even given them, a moment. I wouldn't even looked at them unless I was kind of looking at the corner of my eye, just at the uniqueness and that judgment that I might have been under at that time, right? At that time. So, getting back to this word in integrity, integrity is the cornerstone of good character and encompasses all 12 of our character traits and is the quality of being honest, trustworthy, fair, responsible, caring, and having the moral courage to do the right thing. I think it fits in perfectly, right? But to each his own ideas, right? We got to think it's when we talk about values, each one of us is going to have different values, right? And there's going to be a hierarchy in those values because what I find to be most important, right? That's going to come from my experiences, my adventures, and right? Those relationships that I've had in my life, those pains in my life. And it's going to be a little bit different in what you prioritize in those values that right that you could call them boundaries if you want to, right? But not in a malicious way. That's just out of a respectful way because that's how we're going to have to do that when we're right. We're associating with beings and right and humans that are just so awed by and so scared by and so cautious by what they're not accustomed to, right? So sometimes it's just a matter of right just being around each other for a little bit of time, right? So we can feel each other out to see if possibly right some of those values that you have might be the same, right? That might be somebody that you might trust with your private thoughts, right? Or be able to appreciate a beautiful landscape sitting on the top of the hill together, right? Honestly, and not thinking, oh my goodness, this is the silliest thing ever, right? I could be bowling, I could be right, I could be race car, I could be doing anything, right? But because we're traveling together for a small path that we get to spend a little bit of time together, if we enjoy the same things, if we have the same values, right? If we can even appreciate and using some of those sensitivities that we have as highly sensitives, right? We can appreciate and recognize how people might feel, right? In those small thoughtfulnesses that we give to people. Have that same kind of integrity and feel them out and say, oh my goodness, okay, well, if I do this, they're probably not going to appreciate it. They might not say anything to me, but I know they're not going to appreciate it. If they don't appreciate it, I'm having such a good time tonight, right? Such good conversation, right? And so's wife is such a good cook. What a wonderful dinner. What great conversation. What a beautiful home, right? They got a fire pit. We're about to go outside and right? Light the fire pit, right? But it's in those moments where we can feel comfortable and we can, right? We can appreciate that we're finding people with similarities to us, that we're enjoying their company. And even though they're slightly different, that they can appreciate, how I might feel about something. And I can appreciate how they might feel comfortably or uncomfortably about something. And you can tie it up, right? I was ready to come in and talk about thoughtfulness, but you can kind of talk about integrity, right? In that same manner of considering the thoughtfulness is, right? Considering others, because we do want to get closer, don't we? Right? And we want to get closer to people who think like us, feel like us, sometimes look like us, that are us, right? But sometimes that's not possible, right? Maybe you're a one of a kind in your area, but you don't want to spend your life alone. You don't want to be able or not be able to have conversations and rub shoulders, right? Or be that shoulder for somebody else, right? In this digital age, there's no excuse for that. I have met amazing, amazing, amazing people from all over the world that have added to this story that I'm not saying playing out, that I'm living out, right? That I'm feeling out. But I'm using that genuineness to hold myself accountable in what they're talking about here, that honesty and that trustworthy, because genuineness ties in hand with that also, right? If some of these traits are just naturally programmed into you, I'm going to have to give a shout out to my dad, right? Right? Because it is in who we surround ourselves with. And I am grateful that, I didn't have a lot of people in my life, but I absorbed in those relationships. And maybe it was just the hunger to feel like I belonged, right? And I was able to belong, but through those values that I had, to be able to find people who were completely different, so different than me, right? But I felt comfortable and I felt safe to let my guard down, to let some of those walls down, even to allow myself to be hurt, right? And I've allowed myself to laugh and to allow myself to smile. And those were all gifts because of that one mission statement, that it takes all kinds to make the world. And it does, right? And it allowed me to make an abundance of amazing relationships in my life. Dynamic, unique, frustrating, but beautiful, and some of them long lasting, and all of them full of lessons, and all of them adding an ingredient, a cautiousness, right? Or a little bit of mishap or misunderstanding to the way I move. But that's what this is all for. This is what the lessons are for, right? In that bit of course correction. And sometimes it's a bit, sometimes it's a lot, right? But depending in how we're planning on moving, that will, right? But we have to have those values in place, because we know, right, if you're going to move, that we will be rubbing shoulders with people who are different than us, right? Souls that are completely, right, unrecognizable in what we understand. But isn't it amazing that there's that possibility that we can stand beside people that we would never have been able to associate with in our entire lives? At least we think so. And it happened for me. Like, I have no idea how I got into these in crowds, right? These beautiful people who were just as beautiful on the inside as they were on the outside. And yes, there was imperfection there, but that love and that respect for each other, right? In that, what am I thinking here? That being myself, being genuine, holding my own, right? Having those conversations, butting heads, right? Standing up for myself and standing up for my friends, standing up for people that I was grateful to be able to call friends. When if it was a different time or a different need, if I had people that I was more like and I didn't have that need to be around people, and I could have chosen something different, and I would have missed out on some of those most amazing relationships in my life, right? And they were amazing, whether those relationships ended well or they're still in play, right? Or they're long past and it's spilt milk, right? They all offered up lessons. And I think some of those lessons, that my integrity, right? Those things that I value, those things in my genuineness, I hope at some point, right? People be able to connect with it and say, oh my goodness, right? She's all messed up. She's all over the place, right? But she's holding her own, and she believes, right, in what she's taking in, and right, sending out there, because that's my integrity at the same time. So I have to show up here genuine, right? Warts and all, forgetting even what the word was that we were talking about this week, right? But I have to show that because I could have, right, come in here and, right, after Googling it and go ahead, I could have talked about trust. I could have talked about fairness and responsibility, caring, because a lot of what I do is for the caregivers, right? Is for the light and the darknesses, the ones who give more of themselves, right, than they give to themselves. And, big message. And we're probably going to get more messages on this, but, right, we take those baby steps and we do the best that we can. And along the way, right, if you just, right? Just lay it out. It is what it is, right? It is what it is. But it could be something magnificent in that movement, right? In that movement that we can pick up along the way. People that might have some of these same values as us, right? That'll make it feel a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more safer, a little bit, so that we can bring those walls down a little bit, that we can, right? Victor Otto, right? He'd say, fly our freak, right? To be ourselves, to be the uniques that we are, and know we're not going to be judged for that, right? and to be able to hold on to those ideas that it's possible to find those people. I have found those people in my life, and it's possible that I'll find those people again. Right? And even if it's not going on in my life right now, I just hold my own. I stay in the lessons. I keep having a conversation. I keep showing up here, right? And I understand that if I hold on, right, to these values, honesty, trustworthy, fairness, responsibility, right? I call that accountability in that self parenting that us highly sensitives and empaths do, right? The caring for others. And maybe, right, that's how the thoughtfulness ties into that, right? Because it's part of my integrity. And it's so visible in what's being returned to me, right? So it's worth taking note of that it is something important, that it is something that contributes not to just my movement forward, but right to others. I made my brother-in-law onion buns. He loves my onion buns, homemade bread, and then I saute onions and I massage it into the bread before I pan it, and it rises up, and it's kind of like a focaccia bread, but no herbs, just onions, and it's just really yummy. But I don't know why I'm saying that. Oh, it's because I was tying up thoughtfulness into the integrity, right? It's important, right? There are lots of things, lots of words, lots of impactful words that are powerful, and I jump into them like, oh my goodness, right? I thought this was gonna be nothing, but this word is so big. All right. And then sometimes I come in and go, oh my goodness, how am I gonna talk about this word for a week? And then at the end of the week, I go, oh, I wish I had another week to talk about it. Right? But we'll be back tomorrow talking about integrity, right? Come at it with a different perspective because it seems like a little bit of marmalade today, but that's okay, right? I'm entitled to be a little bit marmalade, a little shredded. It's still sweet and it's still yummy, isn't it? Okay, you guys, I'm going to make myself another cup of coffee, and I'm going to put my beautiful amethyst. It was very thoughtful of my brother-in-law to give me these. Very nice of him. And yeah, clean up my desk and call it a day. You guys, that's my good cheer. We'll see each other tomorrow. Bye bye. Come on, mouse. There we go.